Todos, right here at Reggae, Rototom Sunsplash Reggae University 2023. We are delighted to be back with you once again. Thank you all for joining us. And we would like you to put your, well, let me just introduce our good people here that co-chair these sessions with me. On my left, you have Pier Tosi, broadcaster and journalist from Bologna, Italy. At my far right over here, you've got Ellen Cullings and Pete Lilly, the joint editors of Rhythm Magazine in Germany. And you have myself, David Katz, author and journalist based in London, England. And right now, the man of the moment, please put your hands together, give a warm welcome for the Mad Professor. Yes, have a seat, Prof.
Testing, testing. Where's this? A little bit more treble. Testing. Ah, okay.
Now, Neil Fraser, better known as the Mad Professor, your Ariwa label and studio, it's been a big part of reggae culture in Britain and all over the world for a good number of years now. I'd like you to begin this session. You were born, where you grew up, and that journey that you made from a place called Guyana in the South American mainland all the way to London, England. Tell us a bit about that journey and about how music was part of it.
Yes. Well, I was born in the mid-50s in born in the mid-50s in the northern part of South America, okay, a place called Guyana. And Guyana is the only English-speaking country in South America because I would say 70% of South America is really Spanish. And of course, Brazil, Portuguese occupy a very large part of South America. So, you know, our culture being an English colony, our culture is more akin to the culture of Trinidad, to the culture of Jamaica, to St. Lucia. You know, we're basically made up of people who came from Africa, and some got let off in Jamaica, Kingston, some got let off in Barbados. In fact, the better ones, better behaved slaves got let off in Barbados. And they say the rough slaves got let off in Jamaica. If you're really rough, you get let off in Guyana. So, you know, and then we would intermix with the local people, the Arawaks and the Caribs, and places like Guyana and Trinidad, we also intermix with some people from the India subcontinent. So you have Guyanese and Trinidadians with names like Passad and Singh, Ramcharan, and this kind of thing. So like in Guyana, it was like 50%, not quite 50, say 46% African and another 46% Indian from the Indian subcontinent. And then maybe the next 10% would be like Amerindian, native Indians, you know, like Arawaks and Caribs. So not to dwell on that too much, but I was brought up there until I was like 11, 12. Then my parents separated. My father went to England, and I joined him in England to to educate myself.
So you came up when you were 11 or a little later than that?
Little later, yeah, yeah. I mean, I told my mom when I was 11 that I can't stay in this place because I found Guyana very claustrophobic, you know, and I had to get out. So, yeah, I went to London.
So what was that journey like for you? What was the life like in London when you arrived there?
Well, even before London, the first time I actually saw a white person is when I was on the plane and I saw the air hostess. And it's like her eyes, I remember to this day, her eyes was like gray, like you could see right through the eyes. Which, for me, who just saw like African and Indian people, it was very strange. But the journey, I remember walking up the stairs to the plane and thinking, but where am I going? I don't know my father, I don't know anybody. What, what am I doing? You know, and I had in mind to turn back, but something tell me no, keep walking, keep walking.
So, and how long after your arrival did you start to understand that you had some skill in electronics?
Well, that happened even before I took that journey, because when I was a kid, about 6, 7 years, you know, we weren't particularly well off, and the two things we had in our house was a radio and a light bulb. Fridge came later, right? So I would say to my mother, what's the man doing in the radio? Why he's singing? Why he's talking? Thing. She said, no man in the radio. So one day, 'cause she was a nurse. One day when she went out, I took a screwdriver, went behind the radio and opened the back. And of course, I didn't see any man, but I saw a load of resistors and capacitors, diodes. And she said, listen, you're broken up my radio. Why are you broken up my radio? I said, I'm looking for the man. She said, listen, go to the library, get a book, find out. So I went to the library and find some books. And within a year or so, I built my first radio.
Okay. So, and then when you were there in London, I think it's not too long after that, you started working for Soundcraft, the renowned
Yeah, well,
mixing
the journey in London for someone coming from the Caribbean was not easy in the 70s because, you know, the host community, the white people in London, they didn't quite know how to handle the, the new immigrants, you know? And we had like people wanting to fight you at school and this and that. And, you know, quite soon, most Caribbean people would adopt more a Jamaican culture because the only thing they respected, you know, is like the Jamaicans because they know the Jamaicans would fight them back. So for all purposes, we're all Jamaican. We're all ready to fight. If not ready to fight, ready to cause some B clot and R clot and the usual thing. But yeah, it was kind of rough still. And then after a long story, which we won't go into, but I end up fixing like radios and stereos, and then I got a job at Soundcraft. Soundcraft is some people who made consoles. They were going for like 3, 4 years in London. I remember going for the job because I was never like qualified in electronics. When I went for the job, funny enough, the guy in charge of taking me on, he was also from Guyana, and he was quite sarcastic, very, very sarcastic. Because he said to me, you call yourself an engineer? I said, well, yeah. Said, well, and he took me to a room, probably half the size of this. Said, well, the room was full with printed circuit boards, stacked, holy. Said, you see all these boards in here? And it was like 2,000 boards. Said, all of these boards are bad, and you have to fix 20 of them in a week. I said, all right. And the first day, I fixed like one of them. Second day, fixed like 10. Third day, he came to me and he said, oh, Banner, slow down, because you wouldn't have no work by Christmas. So slow down. So I got a job. Yeah, I got a job.
Okay, so you're saying you displayed this obvious affinity from the mixing desk, and then you noted that you had to somehow become Jamaican through this journey, or you identified with the toughness of Jamaicans.
Yes.
What
Yes.
about an identification with reggae music? How and when does that begin?
Well, reggae started from when I was in Guyana, because for most artists from Jamaica, they would journey to the Eastern Caribbean. They would go to like Trinidad, Guyana, Grenada, Antigua, and they would do shows. So when I was small, I would see people like Byron Lee and the Dragonaires and Ken Booth and all the artists. I remember going and seeing a show with Dennis Al Capone and Chosen Few, and you know, we had a slightly different reggae going to Guyana than was going to England. But you know, at some point, some people would cross over. You know.
So those were some of your early reggae experiences before you came to London. So tell us a bit about the London connection and then establishing your own studio and label.
Well, you know, I kind of got into trouble. Got into trouble with the law and the police, and after a few years, my mom said to my dad, send back my one son to Guyana, because, you know, blah, 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 getting into trouble.
So you were keeping the wrong company and going down the wrong road.
Yeah, you know, they couldn't understand it. So, you know, after I went back to Guyana, come back now, I decide I'm gonna get straight and, you know, find myself a career. And I thought music. You know, I remember starting to build my studio. I had this idea. One day I said to my girlfriend, I said, you know what? I want to build a studio. And she thought it was funny because, and she said, but you can't sing. Why build a studio? I said, no problem. And I put half the house, half the front room into a control room. The other half into got a drum kit, got a piano, and started to work. You know.
Well, let's see if we can take a little listen to a bit of track one and see what you can tell us about it, if we're able to hear it properly. How's our engineer? Paging the engineer. Engineer. Okay. All right, well, Prof, let's just keep the conversation rolling. So,
okay.
You decided, so essentially you're saying you set up a studio in your home. Okay, yeah. Okay, can we play a little bit of track one? Yeah, okay, go ahead. Yeah. So, Prof, who were we just listening to
Better.
a moment there?
Oh, that was Kunta Kinte, a track recorded in the front room, the same front room where I started. And by the time this track was recorded, because I started as a 4-track, with a 4-track quarter inch. Then I moved to 8-track, and by the time I recorded this track, that was 16 track on a 2-inch tape. And that was, the music was played by a band from Brixton called Aquism. And yeah, this track, you know, I didn't realize at the time, but it was a classic already immortalized by Jashaka, who became quite good friends with after that, you know.
Yes, and Jashaka was close to your area. In fact, the two of you became quite close in
Yeah, man.
a working relationship.
Yeah, man, very, very close. Because soon after that, I moved the studio to Peckham. Now, Peckham is an area of London akin to like Trenchtown. It was a rough and tough area, you know. And I had the studio in the basement. It was a 4-story building. Then we had the office on the first floor. Then on the second floor, that was Jashaka's label thing, you know. So we're both operating from the same building for like 4 years.
So, Prof, when you set up your studio in your front room, what was your intention? What did you think, oh, this is what I want to achieve with my studio and my label? What were you aiming for?
Well, 2 things. One, I was fed up of going to work for other people, you know? That's the first thing. So I wanted to have some independent way of earning, and the studio and the label was the perfect way. Next thing, I saw there were a lot of local artists who wanted to do music, and they had no studio facilities, and they had no label facilities. In fact, soon after I started to get some artists around like Sgt. Pepper and Rankin, and they all kept saying, start a label, start a label. And naturally, the studio was called Ariwa. And naturally, the natural thing was to call the label Ariwa, as opposed to Fraser Sound, you know.
And what does the name mean, and how did you come across it?
Well, Ariwa is a Yoruba word. It's a Yoruba meaning West Africa, out of Nigeria. And in one of my jobs before Songcraft, I was working at Ready Fusion, and there were 2 African guys. I can't remember. I think they might have been Yoruba guys, actually. One tall, about 7 foot tall, man. So I said to him, give me a name. I said, I want an African name because I'm going to start my business. And then write 3 names down on a paper. And the first one I liked was Ariwo, Ariwo. And I thought, yeah, this is good. So I wasn't mad on the O, so I changed the O to A and call it Ariwa. And as it happens, Ariwa meant communication. Like, Ariwa, 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 you know. Tribal.
Okay. Okay, now you were mentioning some of the early artists that you worked with based in England, but at the same time, you also were working with artists who were visiting from Jamaica. So let's take a little listen to a bit of... Oh, he's gone again? Okay. All right, so Prof, tell us a bit more about, how did you come across the talent? How did you approach artists, or were they approaching you? Was it a combination of both? How did things really come together at Ariwa Studio in these early days?
Well, it's funny how it works. At that time, there weren't that many studios around. And from you start, people would be telling people. I remember, for instance, someone brought, someone came to the studio to record. Then they brought Desmond Decker in, and then Desmond bring like Laurel Atkin, and then goes. Then someone tell Johnny Clark. Johnny came in. You know, word just passed because passed fast because there were no hardly any studios, and because it was kind of small and rough. Most of the artists from Jamaica, they were quite comfortable. And being that my desk was based on a Songcraft desk, the bottom end was like solid, you know. It had a 5-band parametric EQ. So they all like that smooth bottom end, you know.
Okay, well, so since you just mentioned Mr. Clark, let's take a little listen to a bit of track 2. Mr. Engineer, don't go anywhere.
Reggae music, give the people what they want. Sweet, sweet music. I don't want to see the world go down. I don't want to see the world go down. The people want to live their lives much longer. The people want to see the young ones prosper.
Yes.
Nuclear weapon, yeah, man. Check, feedback. All right. Okay.
Yes. So, as you began to build up your catalog, when we look back at the way Ariwa evolved, you start to have some different streams, different strands of music styles that develop at the same time. Let's take a little listen to a bit of track 4 and see what you can tell us about this style.
Okay.
Going back, I'm going back. Going back, I'm going back. Going back, I'm going back. I'm going back to country living, where the air is fresh and clean. Going back to natural living, where the grass grows tall and green, and the skies can be seen. Ooh, should I say goodbye?
Okay. This is country living. And yeah, it's a very significant track in the Ariwa history because this actually marked a change in the style because the first few releases on the label were really more kind of me finding my way, and you know, the label had a hard time getting through because the top records at the time when I started the label were like Dennis Brown sitting and watching, Bob Marley waiting in vain. You know, I mean, you're up against some real classics, you know? And then I'd come along with my whatever, and I stood no chance against the competition, whether Jamaica competition or UK competition. It was a tough scene. So after like doing a tour with Lee Scratch Perry, Lee Perry, I came back in and I decided gonna change up the studio, or change the sound. First thing I did, I thought I'd find some covers. And Country Living was originally by the Stylistics, but it was already immortalized in reggae by the Diamonds, right? And it was a popular blues tune. Like you'd go out on a Saturday night, and we had loads of blues dances in London. You're bound to hear Country Living. So it was a brave move, and some people thought a crazy move to try to cover such a song. But I did tweak up the studio a lot, and I learned some things from scratch in any case, because he had a way where he'd show you how to deal with the voice, and the voice against the rhythm. So by the time I did Country Living, I used some of those tricks with the record, and I was more sure of myself as a producer, engineer, you know?
Come in, Pierre.
1, 2, check it. As you know, I'm a huge fan of Ariwa,
Okay.
and you're famous for your dub approach, but you always been a great producer and director of voices, especially female voices. So it's the soulful side of reggae music, and you had this wonderful camp of great women: Sandra Cross, Kofi, Sister Audrey, Aisha. So can you tell us something about that part of your productions?
Right. Well, I was, and still am, a big fan of like Judy Mowatt and Marcia Griffiths. And I love when you hear a woman singing on a heavy rhythm, you know? To me, it's the ultimate combination of, of good music. You have these voices like angels, and then you have the rhythm section coming with a force, you know? So I'm always looking to push the two forward.
Well, let's just listen to a prime example of that. Give us a little bit of track 5 and see what you can tell us about this combination, Prof.
This musical sound is dedicated to each and every one of my brethren and sisters all over the world.
Don't call me no English guy, just call me by my name.
Not do that.
You were born an Englishman, I'm sure you feel the same.
When I meet you, the true born African. Hey, so not your true born African. See, but me living in a different land. None of us are living in a different land. We see me move, I never born ya. When I poop, I never born ya. Say, so not you one woman. Think of those say, so not you living in a different land.
Yes, Prof. So what can you tell us about this combination and this type of a hybrid style?
Yeah, man. Well, English Girl was one of the first Ariwa hits, but it came out on the Jashaka label. And what I learned from the record business is, as an independent, if you version your own tune and it don't hit the first time, it hit the second time. If you version it the third time, then you stand more chance of hitting. And I learned that from watching Tamla Motown, because Motown would take a song, they would version it, and even songs, even in reggae, songs like I'm Still in Love with You, they were version of the song, and if you do it right, It usually get better. But anyhow, this is English Girl, first hit in 1982, and then went to LA. So U-Roy standing on a wall, looking at Marcia Griffiths and Judy Mott, Rita Marley, and someone said to me, "That's U-Roy." Now, I always wanted to be like U-Roy, because when I was a kid, the only thing I wanted to do is wow, chicka bow, wow, wow, wow. So I was like U-Roy, biggest fan. They said, "That's U-Roy." So I went to him and I said, "U-Roy, I'm a big fan of yours. I've got a label called Ariwa. I'd like to record you." He gave this kind of sarcastic laugh and he said, "Yeah, enough people would like to record the eye, but enough man not serious." So I said, "Well, I'm serious." So he said, "Well, all right, call this number." He gave me a number, and the rest is history. We ended up going, myself, Black Steel, and Eddie Brown, two key musicians. We ended up flying to LA with the tapes, and at that same show, we hooked up with the Beastie Boys, who had just said, "Well, listen, come and use my studio anytime, right?" So we went to Grand Royal Studios, took U-Roy in, and yeah, tune after tune after tune on the first day, and then by the second day, he kind of got kidnapped by some hooligans in LA, and yeah, it was looking serious. But thank goodness we finished the album, and the album became a big hit, big hit.
Yeah, it became a bit of a sensation and the first
Yeah.
of a series of albums that you did with the great man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we ended up doing about 7 albums with U-Roy.
Now, I'm sure you all noticed that there's a mixing desk right here. This mixing desk serves a purpose. The second part of this session, we are going to be treated to a master class with none other than Mad Professor himself. But before that, we're going to open things up for question and answer in just a moment. But I'd like to play a little bit of this track, number 10, to see what you can tell us about this other side of you, another function that you serve.
Ah, Lovers Rock. All right.
Won't tell, but I intend to start living. Won't tell, I'm good at giving, but I can't hate you, though I have tried. I still really, really love you. Really, really love you. Love is stronger than pride. Love is stronger than pride. I still really, really love you.
Sade. Huh?
Yes, Prof. So tell us about how did you become involved in this track by Sade, and what role did you play in it?
Well, around this time, this would be, oh gosh, probably late 80s, early 90s. I think more late 80s. You know, we start to get call from a lot of majors about remixing. Like Warner Brothers would call RCA, and this is Sony. Sony had this Sade project, and they said, "Well, look, could you do a Lovers Rock version?" Sade really liked Lovers Rock. So I got together a few Ariwa artists, Steele and Carl Thompson, and we remixed it. We totally rebuilt the section. Yeah, Sony was quite pleased, and it became a big hit in Japan. Well, you know.
Yeah, and it's something of a legendary track in the Ariwa back catalog.
Yeah.
So we've reached that point when we're going to open things up to question and answer. So who amongst you would like to be the first to put a question to our special guest, Neil Fraser, the Mad Professor? Yes, we're. So, who's got a yes? We got a question right over here. Hold on, we're bringing you a microphone.
Jack, hello. First, thanks for beautiful music that you made.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great, really appreciate. And my question is about cumbia.
Cumbia.
Yeah, because cumbia is huge, and you did something crazy with cumbia. So you can talk about that.
Yes. Well, cumbia is like, I mean, the way I study it is like the meetings of three cultures, meetings of like African people meeting like Latino people meeting native South American people, you know, and in different places it takes different forms. Like in Colombia, cumbia. In some places it's salsa. In Brazil, it's the next thing. In even Argentina, the next thing. And cumbia has got the African spirit meeting the Latino spirit. And I went there and I was knocked out by it. And I met up with some guys, Frente Cumbero. And we did an album that did very well. And it just told them was quite popular, you know? Yeah, man. Cumbia is like Colombia version of samba. And of course, you could go through South America and the Caribbean, and you see calypso is also related to this music, and even early reggae related to this meeting of cultures. When sometimes different cultures meet, you get something special, and cumbia is special.
Shout out, thanks.
Yeah. Yes, thank you for that question. Okay, and who wants to put the next question to our special guest, Mad Professor? Oh, yeah. Time. Yeah, we got time for another few. Okay, question in the front.
Greetings, neighbor. How you do?
Yes, greetings. Thank you.
As my brother said, thank you for the music over the years. I wanted to just ask you whether there was a singular approach that you had to the different genres of music that you.
A single approach?
A singular approach. If there was just one thing that you did for everything that you actually approached, you know, in terms of like.
Yeah, sorry.
Like, yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If there was like a particular approach that you had to everything that you recorded, because you're very eclectic in terms of like the different genres, the different styles being able to record.
Okay, give me like a recipe.
Yeah.
No,
go ahead, Prof.
Heard me.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, go on, Prof.
yeah. You know, the thing about music is that first of all, you have to look and see where you are in the marketplace, and where I was in the marketplace, it wasn't an ideal position, or it wasn't a place where you'd expect any success, you know? Because for a start, the competition that we had out there was quite intense and strong. And also, reggae business in the 70s and 80s was a very aggressive business, you know? And it was a business where you only survive if you're tough. And it was quite militant, you know, and even the style of steppers, it was so militant. And dub itself was extremely militant. In fact, when dub started to get popular, people like King Tubby's, you know, when you hear those tunes in a dance, not many people could take the drum and bass because it had a force. Okay, we all take it for granted now. We're all used to it. But, you know, it wasn't, okay, you had reggae aggression and dub was even more aggressive than reggae. So we had to really use my brain to get over the obstacles that was in front. And then being non-Jamaican, you get a certain amount of pressure initially that you had to battle through, you know? Yeah, so, you know, but just press on. Then you had people like the radio. The radio DJs never want to play the record. So we had to literally fight the radio DJs just to get play. Because they weren't letting us in. Not at all. So, you know, had to just battle on, you know?
Okay, so what I'm taking from this question and your response is the determination was the main thing.
Yeah, man. You had to be determined. In fact, one popular DJ once told me, don't leave your day job.
Right.
Don't leave your day job. You're wasting time. Yeah.
Okay.
And I had to say, well, all right, that's what you think. But years later, he apologized when we were selling like 100,000 copies, sitting on the top. We said at number one, Dennis Brown with Old Man River was at number 2.
Right.
Yeah. So
Okay. And then here we are today. So we're going to switch now to the master class.
Okay.
Before we do that, one more time, warm round of applause for the Mad Professor for this session. And do not move. Nobody move, nobody get hurt, because we're about to take some serious instruction from the man himself. So, Prof, we're just going to give you some space and let you take over.